Hello?
Hello, did that work?
Yes, I heard it.
Okay.
This time we watch season 11, episode 4, Avalanche.
Insert joke about how that isn't snow, it's cocaine.
Ah, the 70s. But first, some follow-up.
Well, right now, as we record, but obviously not as you listen, the Mads are doing another one of their episodes. So we can't talk about it because we're doing this instead of actually watching it.
Yes, that's the fun thing about scheduling, is that sometimes you miss the live version of the Mads, but hey, that's what that lovely download is for. You get a download, a VOD, if you buy a ticket to a Mad show, so you can cherish these memories forever.
And I do. And in fact, I prefer watching it on VOD. I don't know. I think I've said this before, but watching live stuff like that just makes me nervous. I want to know that everybody survives a piece of entertainment before I sit down to watch it, you know?
Yes, you don't want to experience, it's like, oh no, something that you'd have to read in the trades later.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, not to be too morbid, but maybe I'm just overly anxious. But yeah, The Lost Missile, we'll be talking about that, I guess, next time around after we had a chance to watch it. I'm sure it was awesome. And in fact, early reports from people talking on our Slack have said that it went very well.
That does not surprise me, given the hit rate that Frank and Trace have.
Yes. Now, also, we got a very nice letter. It is itself a follow-up letter to a letter that we read a few episodes ago. This is from Jason in Utah, who you might remember, inspired by us talking about things and so forth, decided to do a thorough watch-through of the entirety of MST3K from the KTMA days. And also, you'll remember that Adam tried this once and didn't make it out of season 1, I believe.
No, it was brutal.
It was. Well, Jason writes into report. Thanks for the continued work on the podcast. I'm always excited to see a new episode drop. Your insights continue to delight. Thank you so much. We love hearing that.
Much appreciate.
It's really appreciated. But anyway, so thank you for that. I've just finished the Joel episodes, and we'll start the Mike era this week. Oh, man, to watch Mitchell in that context again.
Oh, boy.
So wild. So sad.
And to be done. I mean, don't you want to watch the episodes in a random order?
Overall, this has been a fabulous experience. It's rekindled my love for the show in many, many ways, and I've learned some things I thought were worth sharing. Even though there aren't story arcs for these seasons, I've been surprised by how many patterns I've seen across a given set of episodes at the time. For example, there's a stretch of 4 episodes in season 4, starting with Monster A Go-Go, where Joel expresses visible frustration at something on the screen. Each one of them alone are funny, but when you stack them on top of each other by watching them 4 days in a row, the effect just builds. The last in the sequence is Manos, where Joel screams at the monster and Torgo to do something! This has long been my candidate for the best single riff in the series, but it was 10 times funnier after seeing Joel's frustration with the previous movies building up to that moment. And this is very true. I do want to stop and say, absolutely. I remember this from back in the days. And when I've sat down and watched, arcs of the show in their chronological order, is that absolutely they went through periods where they had ideas in their head or they had jokes that they were sort of lingering on that they would stick to for a couple episodes in a row before they got tired of them. I mean, it makes sense given the way that the show was constructed and how they could fit basically anything into it, that they would latch onto these ideas or have these moments or like a month of being frustrated at the movies or whatever.
Yeah, hence that run in season 8 of I Thought You Were Dale or I Thought I Was Dale based on a misremembered commercial.
Exactly. And it's one of the things, I mean, we'll talk about this in a second, but it's one of the things that I felt was kind of lacking in the season 11 episodes that we were just watching. You don't really feel like, because the season 11 episodes were all sort of written and recorded over a stretch of time and then filmed, like they don't have that chance to have little things grow, little things change week to week, little things connect like that. That all has to be sort of ideally written into the script, but it doesn't happen organically. And I think you can feel that.
The most inorganic show on TV. Critics rave.
Well, no, not quite that much, but I think there's plenty of inorganic television to be found. But Jason continues, I've also found a renewed love for episodes that I had kind of turned away from. In my memory, I thought some of them were deathly dull. I mean, some of them are, but that's okay. But it turns out all I really didn't like was one of the host segments or maybe a 5 to 10 minute stretch somewhere in the middle. And that was coloring how I remembered everything else that sat around it. So if any episodes are like that for your listeners, maybe they ought to give them another try and just skip through those dull bits when they pop up. I bet they'll find a lot more to love in what's left. Which is also true, right? I mean, even the episodes we don't like, because of the nature of this podcast about them, we are forcing ourselves to sit through all of them in a row, sometimes more than once.
And as a result, trying to find interesting things to talk about in regards to them.
That's also true, that we are watching them with this particular eye, like, can we make our show out of this show? And, you know, that's not necessarily fair, but it's also not how normal people experience the show. So, yeah, I don't know. We should watch more Supercuts sometimes.
Yes, and plus when the pandemic's fully over, we can all take a trip to Supercuts.
Yeah. Jason ends by saying that they're already looking forward to our next episode. And we're looking forward to your next letter about how you're doing as you get through the Mike phase and, you know, continue on in the project. If you can keep going all the way through the Mike era and into Jonah Land and whatever lies beyond.
I have genuine suspense over this. It's like, I'm impressed that he finished the Joel era now. Like, my God.
Well, I mean, it does feel like KTMA and season 1 are the hard parts of the trip to get through. Certainly, I could probably sit down and watch seasons 2 through 5 in order without too much unpleasantness.
Sure, but I mean, still, it's like that's an awful quick way to get through such a chunk, such a wonderful part of TV history.
I know, it's taken us years to watch that many episodes.
Yes.
Well, if anybody else out there is trying to do any sorts of wild or crazy approaches to watching MST3K and wants to let us know how that's going or what they're thinking about it, we love to hear about that stuff. Please do write in at info@itsjustashow, or go to our website and write in, or tweet at us, or whatever you want to do. It's cool. We love getting letters about that sort of thing.
I'm surprised we didn't hear from Bill Rebane last episode.
There's still time.
Yeah, I suppose.
All right. Well, we should probably talk about today's episode.
All right. Well, let's all climb the mountain and go down the mountain again.
This time we watch season 11, episode 4, Avalanche. It's the 70s. David Shelby, played by Rock Hudson, is opening a ski resort. He invites his ex-wife, Carolyn, played by Mia Farrow, to the big opening celebration, hoping to re-spark the romance. She finds him domineering and selfish and has been enjoying her life without him, but she comes to the ski resort because, well, you decide. The movie's not going to tell us. Anyway, it's going to be a big deal opening, so some famous skiers and skaters have been invited as well. And we don't really get to know a lot about them either. But David's mom is there drinking vigorously and putting the moves on their bookkeeper, McDade. And everything is going swell until Nick Thorne, photographer and nature lover, shows up and tells David that his construction is going to cause an avalanche. This isn't actually what causes the avalanche in the movie, though. Now, instead, a plane crashes into the mountain, and that sets everything off. Whoosh, 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 whoosh go the cheap special effects, and soon a bunch of people are dead, and a bunch of other people are trapped in fallen buildings or dangling from ski lifts. Some of them make it, some of them don't. In the end, David admits that maybe he's been a bit of a selfish jerk sometimes, and Carolyn is impressed with his personal growth, but, isn't gonna get back together with him, no f***ing way. The end.
Meanwhile, on the Settler to Love, in the prologue, the bots rehearse the drama Mad Bots about robot ad execs in the 1960s. Through a transmission from Artie in Moon 14, we learn that these films are brought to viewers via Kingachrome, and indeed that's how the show is taped. That's a neat little fun fact that goes on to explain all the bubbles we see whenever the show needs to hide a cut or a flubbed take. Anywho, for the invention exchange, Jonah and the bots invent the mouth vacuum, a vacuum where your face's finest orifice provides the suction. The Mads give us the Don LaFontaine 3000, which transforms any phrase into a movie title with an appropriate font. Come segment 2, the bots dress as Rock Hudson and discuss what makes him such a macho success. Jonah tries to switch the discussion to 70s light fixtures. The bots are horrified to learn that Rock's character is not an imitable one, as per Jonah. Luckily, all agree that the film has one male character worth emulating, McDade. In segment 3, Jonah's busy playing Marco Polo with the bots. So, we cut to Moon 13, where Kinga sings a tender love song to space magician Neville, even though their 6-month relationship has been exclusively online. Their duet becomes a tercet when Max joins in. Remember how Max's whole plotline this season is his unrequited love for Kinga? Hoo boy, I'd already had the pleasure of forgetting. By segment 4, Jonah and the bots release a PSA against hybrid, bad-on-purpose direct-to-video trash. Funny they had no problem riffing Atlantic Rim in Season 12. In the final segment, The Satellite of Love presents Aloha, Gypsy's piano cabaret-style one-woman show. The end.
I mean, I think her piano cabaret-style one-woman show is called Gypsy Rose Me.
That's the definitive one, yes.
Avalanche. This movie's very 70s.
It is. I mean, the entire movie, despite the fact that there is snow everywhere, the entire movie looks and feels brown. I have no other way to explain it.
It's so brown. I think I even saw somewhere where Joel talked about how excited he was to get a really pretty print of the film. What is he talking about? It's so brown.
Yeah, this is not filmed in Technicolor.
Did you enjoy this little slice of 70s movie making?
Well, I mean, the fun thing about disaster movies, which we'll talk about, this is indeed one of the trend of disaster movies that piled on in the 70s. And the fun thing about these movies are the casting choices. And again, that's another thing we'll talk about later. So it's kind of fun. And we haven't had like a star-studded MST3K episode in a while. Like, I think even in talking about the original run, the last one may have indeed been Michael Landon in I Was a Teenage Werewolf. Unless you count Jodan Baker in that movie they made in Malta.
Yeah, I'd have to think about what exactly is lurking in seasons 9 and 10. But yeah, certainly, I don't know if there's anything that is like Angel's Revenge level 70s celebrity excess like this.
Yeah. And so there's a certain fun there. There's a certain thing to appreciate there, because what's great about 70s disaster movies with a lot of big stars or formerly big stars is that they kind of feel like a celebratory sitcom episode. Like, I'm reminded of so many sitcom episodes where it's like, oh, we're hitting a milestone. It's Alf's 100th episode. He's trapped in an elevator with a pregnant woman.
Right.
And the pregnant woman will be played by Estelle Getty in a little bit of network cross promotion.
Exactly. Yeah, no, there's definitely that feel. We'll talk about this more later, I guess. Other than that, though, like, I don't know. It's a movie. It happens. It's real boring. You don't get any, again, we haven't watched the unedited version, or I haven't. I don't know if you bothered to.
No.
But we don't get really any backstory or explanation of characters. It's really thinly drawn. And so who cares? Who cares about any of these people? And who cares about the snow? It doesn't even look like snow. So,
and given what we've got, do you really want to see like a deeper cut of Avalanche?
I mean, if I have to see it at all, I'd probably rather see the better version. But yeah, no, I'm good. I didn't check it out. It's fine. What do you think about the episode, though? We haven't done a season 11 in a while.
No, we haven't. And the last time we touched on season 11 and the Jonah era as a whole, we did one of the best episodes of the Jonah era, which was Carnival Magic.
Yeah.
I absolutely love Carnival Magic. That's the kind of movie I love seeing on MST3K. Just some weird, random, unknown thing that tests your patience.
I mean, I didn't know about Avalanche until this happened, although it certainly is not an unknown film.
No. And, it's... It's just kind of like, I don't know. I personally feel like this is one of the weaker episodes of the revival. It's just kind of there, and like the movie doesn't seem to inspire much from our team. There's a cute sketch with Kinga where she sings a nice song, but
Oh, I kind of hated that part.
that's the closest thing I came to liking this episode.
I thought that there were some perfectly good jokes scattered throughout the movie, some good riffs, but it suffers from what so many people complain about with season 11, which is that you don't feel like you're in the room with these characters, right? You don't, it all feels very rushed. It all feels like there's no space for anything to breathe. There's no space for anyone to have an honest reaction to anybody else. It's just, we got to chug the content through. Boom, 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 boom. And that's unfortunate because here's what I thought watching this. I thought, I like all of these characters and I like all of these performers, right? I'm talking here about, about Jonah and about Kinga and Max and all, and the new bots. Like, I'm enjoying all of them.
Yeah.
But this is not them at their best.
No, well, I mean, again, like they're not being given anything that inventive to do. That's why, again, I kind of like the song. Is that it was like, oh, hey, Felicia Day gets to show off that she can sing.
Yeah, no, and she sang very well. It's just it's not, making fun of people for having online relationships is not cool. I don't know. I think it's low hanging fruit, and they handle it poorly. But whatever. I don't want to linger on that. But yeah, I thought it was okay. I don't know. I feel like they did better than this episode.
Yeah, they definitely have. So, man, the 70s were a disaster, from what I understand.
This film was a disaster. I had the same joke lined up, basically. Yeah. No, the 70s were a disaster, I guess. I mean, I was alive during the 70s. But I was still pretty young when they came to their sad end.
Well, you despite all the flannel on TV, you had all these complaints of malaise, yes. And from what I understand, there was a gas shortage. I mean, my God, there's never been anything like that seen before or since.
And so naturally, the culture responded by pumping out disaster movies.
Mm-hmm. Because you know what? When you're in a bad place, you want to see people who are in life or death circumstances and being as miserable as possible.
All right. Well, okay. So I have a few questions here, and that's certainly one of them. Like, why do people watch disaster movies? But let's start with like a more basic question, which is, what exactly is a disaster movie in the sense of a 70s disaster movie?
Well, in terms of a 70s disaster movie, I think you've got a formula, and you need spectacle. There needs to be the illusion that money has been spent. There needs to be a gimmick. So there needs to be, oh, we can't go to the beaches because of this. Oh, we can't go to our apartment building because of this. And of course, people are trapped. We can't use an airplane because of this, etc., etc. Like, it's always got to be a gimmicky location, a kind of thing you can summarize in one sentence of, oh no, this thing isn't working, therefore tragedy.
Right. It also seems like it's going to be an ensemble movie, right? It's going to have a lot of different people who are encountering this problem from different angles, and they're all going to have their own personal stories that relate to it. Even in Avalanche, like, even though they botched this bit up, you've got the owner, and you've got his ex-wife, and you've got the ski star and the skaters, and one of the skaters is super nervous, and this is the thing, and you've got the little kid, and you've got the mother who's drunk, and like, they all have their own little stories, and they're all coming at it trying to just live their lives, and then this terrible event happens, the disaster happens, and then how does this affect their lives? How do they interact with each other? What roles do they have to play when the moment strikes?
And, it's an excuse to throw some money around to get actors who are on their way up or on their way down and just kind of show off. It's like, hey, who is in LA at this time? Like, who is not working in LA in 1976? And that's kind of fun to see.
Yeah. So we think of the 70s disaster films as starting off with Airport from 1970.
Yes. Have you seen Airport?
I watched it the other day for this podcast.
Ooh, how is Airport in comparison to its increasingly silly sequels?
Well, I haven't seen the sequels. Have you?
I've seen Airport 77, which I understand is the silliest of the sequels, which is why I watched it when all the Airport movies were on Netflix a few years ago.
All right, here's the thing. Airport is not a very silly movie, although there is some humor in it, absolutely. But Airport is a fairly serious-minded movie for the most part. And after I'd watched it, I was reading some reviews that, random people had made of it. And most of them agreed that, the later Airports are much more fun than this one.
Yeah.
But this one was the one that was up for Best Picture that year.
Boo, what a terrible year.
It must have been. This does not deserve Best Picture at all. It's not a great movie, but I didn't hate it, and there were certainly things I liked about it. It, again, has sort of an all-star cast. Burt Lancaster and Dean Martin are the two main leads. Yeah, and then amongst the rest of them, I mean, some of them are people who may have become more famous since, but, George Kennedy's in it, Jacqueline Bisset. Helen Hayes does a magnificent turn, and in fact won an Oscar as Best Supporting Actress as the old woman who likes to scam airplanes. And, she gets on flights without paying. She's a stowaway, and, she's hysterical. It's fantastic. I totally am fine with her getting an Academy Award for this, although I feel like it was more for the rest of her career than for this, but that's fine. Maureen Stapleton is in it as the person who can actually act.
Yeah, that sounds right.
She is, I don't know if you know the plot of it. It's the Chicago area airport, and a flight to Rome is boarded by a guy who is planning on, he's a suicide bomber, which he's trying to do in order to get money for his wife, because he's had a hard time making money and being a family supporter. Maureen Stapleton is the wife. And when she figures out what's going on, she gets to emote a lot, and she does a really good job with it. Much better than the writing would allow you to do normally. It's a 1970 movie, so we've got a lot of men, including both Burt Lancaster and Dean Martin, who are having affairs with the young stewardesses and such, and other women who are around. And of course, there's a lot of awkward talk about abortion, because 1970.
Fun for the whole family.
It's super fun. And the movie ends by doing a real dirty as Dean Martin comes out of the plane, the stewardess who is pregnant with his child, who is badly damaged in the airport when the suicide bomber's bomb goes off in the back of the plane and causes a giant hole and so forth. She's badly damaged. She's being rushed to the hospital. Dean Martin, the pilot, has realized his love for her. He's accompanying her, and they walk right past his wife, who's all excited that he's survived and been the hero of this thing. And she's there to greet him and pick him up and looks great, and just sees them going by, doesn't get a line, but knows her marriage is over. It's a really harsh, fantastic moment. And that wife is played by Barbara Hale.
Oh, what do you know?
She's great. I was watching it. I saw her name in the credits. I got excited. I heard her voice. I was like, oh my God, there she is. She's the best.
Wow.
So yeah, Barbara Hale's in this and is also fantastic in a very small role. So yeah, the movie's got some real problems. So how does that compare with the later Airport that you've seen?
Airport 77 rules. It's so silly. So Jimmy Stewart is like a wealthy philanthropist, and he's flying people on his private 747.
Okay.
And they're actors of, basically the plane is full of actors of variable talents. And there's a plot to steal. The plane is full of priceless art, and there is a plot to steal the priceless art by unleashing knockout gas on the plane, because the co-pilot is in on it, but he's going to knock out the pilot and the rest of the passengers, save for the other thieves. And it's incredibly silly. They somehow get lost in the Bermuda Triangle.
What?
Yes.
That was a big thing in the 70s.
And then they end up taking on water. They crash, and they're barely kept afloat. It features MST3K alums Darren McGavin from Hangar 18, done way back when, the KTMA era, and Christopher Lee is also in it, Mr. Fu Manchu himself.
Oh boy. I'm looking at the wiki page for it now. It looks like Olivia de Havilland is playing the old Hollywood Helen Hayes type.
Well, that's just it. I mean, the original Airport created basically an award-winning scene-stealing role for Nans, and that was
Yes.
permanently kept for all 70s disaster movies.
And frankly, as it should be, all movies should have that Nan in it.
There you have it, folks. And see, that's why the giant spider invasion was such a financial success.
Well, now here's what I want to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Is the giant spider invasion a disaster movie?
Well, I think the nature or creatures run amok because, I mean, they're not really space aliens, even though one is a spider that turns out to be really big. You know, the nature gone amok kind of thing, and that's kind of what the giant spider invasion is, despite the fact that there's also a giant creature in it. That's kind of like adjacent to the thing that goes wrong. So it's like it's a different kind of disaster movie, but you have tons of great entries in those as well. So I would say that the Giant Spider Invasion is a cousin to the 70s traditional disaster movies. It's a disaster movie of a different stripe.
I kept thinking about this, about like why are some things disaster movies and other things aren't? What is the nature of this kind of disaster? I didn't come up with anything really. Just that, like, that it's a genre, and therefore there's other types of affiliation that tend to cause things rather than a logical, like, is a hot dog a sandwich kind of thing. If you see what I'm saying with this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was like, oh wait, now is Invasion of the Body Snatchers a disaster film? No, it doesn't really do the multiple plot line thing, but is Jaws a disaster film? It's not usually talked about as one.
I had that on my list as one to debate as to whether or not it is a disaster movie. I don't know about you, but I would also say no. You know, it's like, yes, it's bad that there is a giant shark and we have to close the beaches, but we don't get that wide cast of characters. We have a trio.
Right.
And also, I think that the Nature Gone Amok movies should have a potentially global or certainly citywide element of peril. That's why, like, the giant spider invasion would be there, because, you know, all of Wisconsin is in danger. Whereas in Jaws, it's just, you know, the Amity Beach, and it's like, you know what, they can take care of Bruce anytime. Bruce is easily killed.
Yeah, fair enough. There were a lot of 70s disaster movies, right? Airport did very well. And, you know, it was up for 10 Oscars for some reason. Only won one, thank goodness, but up for 10 Oscars. And a lot of money was to be made. Obviously, as you said, there were several sequels. We also had other movies like The Poseidon Adventure in 1972, which I watched as a kid, and I had a lot of feelings around that movie as a kid. I think I found it very, very scary. And while I have it on deck to watch again, I decided not to watch it for this episode just yet. Maybe if we do another disaster film, I'll check out The Poseidon Adventure and relive Shelley Winter's drowning.
As we all want to.
If that's right. If I'm remembering the plot right. Yeah. Oh boy. Let's see. We had Earthquake. We had The Towering Inferno. We had a bunch of other stuff. And then I guess eventually they stopped making money and they got increasingly silly. And then, of course, they came back in the 90s with CGI, and you get things like Twister.
Boo. Nothing should ever come back with CGI.
And Titanic. Is Titanic a disaster movie?
Titanic's definitely a disaster movie. It's totally like, you know, if it's not going to be like, the animal thing has to be citywide, but if you're like, you have to be trapped in something large in order for it to be a true disaster movie, I think. You know, so you're trapped on a 747, you're trapped in a giant building, or you're trapped on the Titanic.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So yeah, this is another Corman movie.
Yes, and to discuss what happened, how did this movie get made, we need to go off to a little corner known as the Corman Corner, or the Corner. The Corner.
Well, I'm glad Theme Squad bothered to make the jingle now that we've used it twice.
Yay, it justifies it. It's going to be a bit. We have other Corman movies to cover. There's not a lot on this one. Corman, in his book, you know, How I Made So Many Movies and Never Lost a Dime, he doesn't mention Avalanche. I mean, he mentions it in passing as a production, but Avalanche is not talked about in detail because he lost money on it.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Sort of deflates the moral of the book, but he did talk about it in some interviews later. So yeah, let's talk about how this movie came to pass. You know, this was filmed in Durango, Colorado, between February 22nd and March 26, 1978. Released in August of that year, and the only reason it came out is because Corman also had an idea for a disaster movie, and basically thought, it's like, why be in the air when you could be attacked by snow? And that was basically it.
So wait, that's over a month of filming.
Yeah.
For a Corman feature.
Well, remember, this is a big deal Corman feature with big stars. This is Corman trying to branch out and prove that he can do on something closer to his budgets, what Hollywood has been doing for years. He's basically, when you get down to it, it's like Corman has always been about how you can outsmart Hollywood. And there was a time, particularly in the 60s and 70s, where it looked like he was making an extraordinarily good point. But Avalanche is not one of those great points.
Okay. Was it a good filming process?
I mean, you know, people seem to like the Tamarin ski and golf resort where it was filmed. You know, Corman seemed to like the scenery, and you know, it was like, oh, there's the hotel in a little distance from the ski area, and they were able to hit that with artificial snow machines, but Corman ultimately laments the fact that the special effects are pretty crappy.
They are so bad.
Yeah. The snow is not convincing, and all it had to look like was snow.
Well, I mean, it's a lot of snow that's moving.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all right, yes, the snow that's on the ground is often not convincing either,
No.
as Jonah and the bots point out on multiple occasions. But that weird effect of the avalanche falling and like this like weird white screensaver coming across the screen. Why is that so awful? Why is that so bad?
I think because it looks the way that it is. It's like, I would suspect that effect was really rushed, and it just kind of looks like, it's like, that's the best that we can do, is we could just kind of like overlay this footage, and that's it.
It works with giant spiders. Why won't it work with snow?
Basically, apparently, shooting in the snow was difficult, and this is something I never thought about, but it makes perfect sense, which is that it's like every time they would have to do a second take, they would need snow wranglers.
Yeah. Yeah, because if the snow is melted or shifted or moved or anything, there's gonna be massively bad continuity errors.
Exactly. So people had to cover up the footprints, and then people had to cover up the coverers' footprints.
That too. Oh my God, you're right. The footprints as well. Also, I mean, I don't know how they were filming it. Would they have had big lights outside to, usually there's quite a lot of very hot lights at a film set.
Yes, and so this was done traditionally like that, and ordinarily that's not such a huge problem, just because it's like, oh well, they're in Colorado, they're at this ski lodge, there's going to be tons and tons of snow, but they also got unexpectedly hit by good weather, and so some of the snow melted.
Right, of course, that's the real disaster in this movie.
Yes,
a nice day.
There's a better disaster movie to be made about the making of Avalanche than Avalanche itself.
Well, this is Fitzcarraldo all over again, isn't it?
Yes. I wonder if there'll be a My Best Fiend about Avalanche and, I don't know, Robert Forster.
Well, it wouldn't be a 70s disaster movie if it didn't have a bunch of faces you kind of recognize, and it wouldn't be, and it's just a show, if we didn't lovingly list and talk about all those people in a segment that we don't have a theme song for, but which we like to call Familiar Faces.
Familiar Faces.
No. It's not a corner. It's just the Familiar Faces.
It could be the Face Corner.
No, that's creepy.
The Foreigner.
No. All right, we're going to start with Rock Hudson, our biggest star, who plays David Shelby, the developer of the ski lodge. What are your thoughts on Rock Hudson?
Well, Rock Hudson lives up to his name, as he has about as much charisma as one.
In this movie. Have you seen other Rock Hudson movies?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I've never found Rock Hudson to be a compelling presence. He is not great as the ski lodge developer here, and he's given things that he could theoretically do, like he's like a ugly, complicated character, but Rock Hudson just kind of sets his tone to it's like, how about smarm? Now, if I just stay at smarm, I'll be all right. Don't deviate.
He's phoning it in. That's fine. He knew he was doing a Corman film.
But I've never seen him do anything else. And I have seen him in the highlight of his career, where he is in The Ambassador with, you guessed it, Donald Pleasance.
So, I mean, yeah, this is the thing. Like, I don't know that I've seen any of what most people would consider his best movies, nor have I seen the one where he's with Donald Pleasance, I'll admit. But I know that people liked him. Like, I know that my mother was a big fan of his and was very sad. What I know Rock Hudson for, and what I feel like he's most famous for now, is that he was one of the first actors, first celebrities to come out as having HIV and dying of AIDS. He died in 1985. And it was a big deal. Like, nobody was talking about that sort of thing then. He had been in the closet for his entire career, and there's a whole lot that one could say about that. Not like, I'm not trying to make fun of him for being in the closet, but because he was in the closet, that led to some unfortunate things, such as, in order to try to protect his reputation, his management basically made a deal with with Confidential that was going to put out an expose, and said, why don't you write an expose about Tab Hunter instead?
Oh, no.
So
I like Tab Hunter.
Yep. I like Tab Hunter too. Our other lead in this movie is Mia Farrow, playing Carolyn Brace, who is a journalist who writes for, I believe, Harper's, is what she says at the beginning of the movie, and then does nothing vaguely journalisty at all. It's not like she's there to report on the story. But anyway, she's there because she's David's ex. Mia Farrow and Rock Hudson have zero chemistry in this movie.
It's as though the film dares you to watch it.
And if you thought Rock Hudson was refusing to act, you should see Mia Farrow. You barely can. She's so barely in this movie in terms of having any presence on the screen.
Yeah, and that's kind of Mia Farrow's thing, is to be muted and quiet almost all of the time. And, sometimes she gets swallowed up by 70s ugliness, as she does here.
I don't especially want to go into details about Mia Farrow, who, made a bunch of films with somebody that she used to date, and then things got really bad. And I don't want to talk about any of that. Has any other director done good work with her, do you think?
Well, no. No, that's not true. That's not true. I'm just like not. I've seldom seen Mia Farrow be great, although she is really great with a terrible director, and that would be with Roman Polanski's Rosemary's Baby.
Oh, another great guy.
Yeah,
I'm not sure Roman Polanski is a bad director, just a bad person who is a director.
That's what I meant.
Yes, okay. Great. So she has a real habit. She's really attracting problematic people to work with, who then get the most out of her. Great. This is exactly the conversation I wanted to have.
And at the very least, the consolation prize out of a terrible relationship is that she was in Shadows and Fog with Donald Pleasance.
All right.
Boom.
Good. There you go.
She can always look back on that one and laugh.
Yeah, I'm sure she has real fond memories of the set.
I bet.
All right, we're going to move on. We're going to move on to my favorite actor in this, Jeanette Nolan, who plays Florence Shelby, David's mother, who drinks and drinks and drinks. In that cute 70s way, though, where it's absolutely not a problem.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, had this movie been made 20 years later, that would have been a big part of the story. It's like, oh, how do we get Florence to give up the slosh?
Did she ever star with anyone of note?
Yes, because she also has a great credit in that she shows up in a television movie called Better Late Than Never with, you guessed it again, Donald Pleasance.
Great. Excellent. Excellent. This is absolutely, we should have saved this for his birthday.
Yes, that's true. I mean, all these top tier talents acting alongside the greatest.
She also starred with Orson Welles in a film that Orson Welles directed called Macbeth.
So,
Now, I don't know if you've ever seen Macbeth.
a long time ago.
Oh, interesting. I haven't, even when I was going through my Orson Welles, try to watch them all phase 20 years ago, whatever.
Mhm.
But it was not one of his more successful projects, at least at the time. And one of the things that I found really interesting about it was that he basically was given a very tiny budget.
Yeah.
And so one of the ways he responded to that budget is trying to film the whole thing in 23 days, which is to say he went the Roger Corman method.
Exactly. Who leads Hollywood but Roger Corman?
Yeah. I guess this was before Roger Corman, but nevertheless. And he later went on to say that my purpose in making Macbeth was not to make a great film.
Always a good sign.
I thought I was making what might be a good film, and what, if the 23-day shoot schedule came off, might encourage other filmmakers to tackle difficult subjects at greater speed. Unfortunately, not one critic in any part of the world chose to compliment me on the speed. What a fantastic response in that situation. This whole, but I did it in 23 days. You should at least respect that. And I was like, no, it's not a movie I want to see. I don't care how many days it took. I can't see that. I was like, well,
I wonder if he thought, when he was making those champagne commercials by Paul Masson, if he's like, he's not making a great commercial, he's making a good commercial, and he's doing it quickly. And that's why he showed up drunk on the first set of takes.
It took several thousand takes that were recorded for infamy.
The French. French.
But yes, this connection between Orson Welles and Roger Corman deeply pleases me.
Two of the same, two of a kind.
Next up on the docket, we have Robert Forster, who plays Nick Thorne, the photographer and nature lover. And was he in a film with everybody's favorite?
Tragically, no.
Oh, no.
I would say Robert Forster is probably one of the better actors here, delivering a naturalistic performance that does not feel phoned in.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree.
Yeah, he's taking it seriously, but also playing it cool. And that's totally Robert Forster's jam. He is best known for, honestly, I think, at least among people my age, for his comeback movie, which was a bit short-lived, but at least got casting directors thinking of him again, even if it didn't put him in front of A-list cameras, as he was with Avalanche, which is Jackie Brown, the Quentin Tarantino movie Jackie Brown.
Oh, yes.
Which he is absolutely terrific in. But I would be a fool if I did not mention that he is also in a film that has become something of the mascot of the part of our Scaredage podcast, which is that he is the police chief in the film Scanner Cop, which asks the question, what if one of the scanners became a cop?
Was he in both Scanner Cop movies?
He's only in the first one, even though he does not get killed off. Oh, wait, he's not in the first one. He's in the second one. He's in Scanner Cop 2.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Or at least that's what I had on my notes. I got very excited when I saw Scanner Cop 2 in the listing.
Yes.
Because I know how much those films mean to you. Next up on the docket is Steve Franken, who's playing Henry McDade, the bookkeeper who Ma Shelby pounces on.
I think that's what got cut from the MST3K version, is that I'm sure Shelby just jumps on everybody in the movie, including possibly her own son.
I couldn't find anything too exciting about this guy. Did you?
Well, I mean, he's been in some notable stuff. He's in the very dated Peter Sellers comedy, The Party. He's in the original Westworld, and he's still acting today because he was in the he's still acting relatively recently, as he was in the Tom Hanks vehicle based on a Dan Brown book, Angels and Demons.
Oh.
And of course, he was in The Time Travelers just one episode ago.
Yes, there is that MST3K connection. I had forgotten about that, even though they call it out, but so many actors in this. Speaking of other actors, Anthony Carbone. Is that how you pronounce it, or is it Carboni?
I'd love to think of it as a Carboni.
I'm happy with a Carbone, frankly. Either way is fun. Anthony Carbone, or Carboni, or however he says it, is there as Leo the coach, who I guess is the coach of the skater. I don't remember.
I barely recall him appearing, but the name did strike me because he is not exactly a Corman regular, but he's been in a few Corman movies. He's been in one of the earliest Corman movies, Creature from the Haunted Sea, and he's also in one of Corman's best loved movies, A Bucket of Blood.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And he's been in a ton of stuff. Like in the 70s alone, he's in Macmillan and Wife, The Rockford Files, Police Story, Policewoman, and Barnaby Jones. I saw that he shows up in an episode of The Twilight Zone that I have not seen recently and thus don't remember, called The Mirror. And, being in the OG Twilight Zone, that's something to be proud of. And his penultimate credit is being in one of the best episodes of Tales from the Dark Side, The Yattering and Jack from 1987.
Well, good on you, Anthony. You done had a career, and it had some good highlights in it.
Yeah. I'm glad that his career was not a carboner.
And finally, there's a guy in this movie who went by the name of X Brands.
The no-name actor.
Yeah. Who plays Marty Brenner. I don't remember who that is. I assume he's one of the guys who helps at the end. It's a small role, anyways. I don't know who it is. Mm-hmm. But anyway, he had a bit of a career. It was not very flashy, but he was one of those white guys who in the middle of the 20th century played quote unquote Indians in movies and found some actual Native American person to say that he was doing a good job of it. Mm-hmm. But what got me really excited was his weird name.
Okay.
He did have a first name. His first name was J. X Brands. X was his middle initial, but it was just X.
Oh.
And it turns out, according to reputable website Wikipedia, check it out sometime, it turns out that this X is kind of a family historical name. So his ancestors came from Germany, and apparently there were two men in the town named Jan Brahms. And so in order to distinguish themselves, one of them adopted the middle initial X. So, and then he got known as X Brands or Bronze or whatever. And that name kept being passed down. So whenever a boy was born, basically, when there was nobody named X, they got the X initial and got called X. That's a fun family tradition, I think.
Yeah, that's cool. That we need to have more X middle names.
Hey, everybody, it's time for the Shallow 13.
It's time for the Shallow 13. 13 tiny tidbits about today's movie and episode, Avalanche. Go, Adam, go!
Avalanche was produced by Roger Corman, but it was directed by Corey Allen. Allen started off as an actor, and his most famous role was playing the kid who plunges to his death in a game of chicken in Rebel Without a Cause. Spoilers for Rebel Without a Cause, I guess.
But after his acting career dried up, Allen went behind the camera and directed, mostly for television, including episodes of Murder, She Wrote, Hill Street Blues, he won an Emmy for one of those, and it says here Star Trek The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine.
Yes. Allen directed the very first episode of The Next Generation, Encounter at Farpoint, an episode in which you can tell that a couple of space squids are a hetero couple because one is pink and the other is blue. In Allen's defense, it's not the worst episode of TNG. Hell, it's not even the worst episode of the TNG's notoriously off first season, but it's not very good.
Allen also met up with Charles Manson in 1967, right when his cult was starting. Manson had a film idea that he wanted to discuss with Allen, and Allen went so far as to even let Manson and his family stay at his place for a while. But eventually, Allen's then-girlfriend got a little creeped out and made him kick the Manson family out.
Spotting someone buried under a log, Jonah sings,
It's log, it's big, it's heavy, it's wood. It's log, it's better than bad, it's good.
This is a reference to the all-timer in-series commercial from the Ren and Stimpy show, in which the toy being advertised to kids is in fact just a log.
As a skier starts going down a slope, and we watch his butt swish and swoosh back and forth, Crow says,
Feels like I'm wearing nothing at all. Nothing at all. Nothing at all.
This is, of course, a Simpsons reference from an episode in which Flanders is also wearing a skin-tight ski suit. Homer is mesmerized by, quote, stupid, sexy Flanders.
For those of you who care about such things, that's a season 11 episode of The Simpsons and the first to air in the 2000s, debuting just a few months after the final episode of the original run of MST3K. Rumor has it that now, 21 years later, new episodes of both shows are being made.
As Mia Farrow's character wanders through the photographer's cabin, she stops to look at a particular picture. Jonah notes,
This is extremely rare. It's a Keane painting of an ocelot.
Margaret Keane is known for her paintings of women, children, and animals with big, big eyes, which have been enchanting and or terrifying viewers since the 1950s.
Although her husband, Walter Keane, was originally known for these paintings, Margaret divorced him in 1965, at which point she was finally able to assert that she had actually made his paintings. Tim Burton would later direct the biopic Big Eyes about their tumultuous relationship.
Oh hey, it's a callback of sorts. During the rescue attempt, as some indistinguishable 70s guys in puffy jackets climb up a snowy hill, Tom has them say,
Go Packers! Go Packers!
There were about 70 billion Go Packers jokes in the last episode that we watched, the Wisconsin-based giant spider invasion, and we failed to acknowledge them. Packers, we see you, and we acknowledge you. You may go.
Before the avalanche, as some parents step away from their kid for a moment, Crow says,
Jason, darling, stay here and watch Mommy and Daddy sleep.
We're leaving you here with wavy gravy.
The joke is about the bearded guy right behind them who looks nothing like Wavy Gravy, but we'll roll with it. Wavy Gravy is a big ol' hippie-type activist and entertainer, perhaps most famous for having been the MC at Woodstock. Well, in fact, all 3 Woodstocks.
In his early days, Wavy Gravy was the roommate of a very young Bob Dylan. His showbiz career was then being managed by Lenny Bruce, and as a poet, he was an opening act for Thelonious Monk. He got his stage name apparently by accident from B.B. King before a show one night. He founded a secret society of comics and clowns dedicated to ending the Vietnam War and was the official clown of the Grateful Dead. He had a flavor of Ben & Jerry's named after him. He's had a heck of a life.
And finally, as David looks down to where his mother died, Crow has him say,
My mother, who was the same age as I am.
well, close enough, Crow. Jeanette Nolan, who plays Rock Hudson's mother, was only 13 years older than Rock. Of course, Rock was 20 years older than Mia Farrow.
And that's time.
I think we have just given our audience an avalanche of fun facts, but there's surely one last fun little tidbit about Avalanche that we can dispense. Chris, what would that be?
Well, actually, there isn't. So instead, I'm going to ask for a fun tidbit about you and maybe offer one about me. I want to know, we've gone all this way talking about Avalanche. I want to know if you've ever gone skiing.
Oh, I have gone skiing. I crashed into a tree.
Did you heroically jump up into it as an avalanche was coming after you?
No, it was not that good. It was more just a matter of I didn't know how to control things. Things moved too fast, and I got quite scared while I was moving. I was about, I want to say 8 when I was taken to this ski lodge, and I did not have a fun time. So I basically crashed into a tree, got my face cut up a little bit, and said no thanks to skiing. What about you?
I have not been skiing, but I have been to a ski resort.
Ooh, someone's been the star of an 80s sex comedy.
Well, this is kind of it, right? This is where my story is going, is that I used to work at a place where they very heavily subsidized a holiday retreat to Aspen.
Oh.
To a very fancy ski lodge area. You got free ski tickets, or if you didn't want ski tickets, you could get spa tickets or whatever. And so I went one year and hung out in Aspen, which is a very weird town, or it was when I was there 20 years ago. And this was a retreat where people from all across the country had come together. So that meant that there were lots of people hooking up.
Yeah.
But out of the hundreds of people who were hooking up there were only, let's say, a very small handful of people where it was likely for me and them to hook up, just law of numbers. There were only so many gay people there. So there was not so much hooking up for me. I mean, there was a little bit of awkwardness as, there was one potential person who I was like decided, okay, I guess you're the one I'm going to be into for this trip, but nothing was going up there. There was somebody who basically decided that of me, but I wasn't particularly interested in them. So there was, I guess, some hijinks, but mostly it was very, very frustrating. But skiing terrifies me because I don't want to hurt myself. And it seems like I absolutely would. would. And I don't enjoy physical activity, as I think is well established at this point. So
Sloths forever.
I could not imagine enjoying a ski. So I just stayed in the cabin and moped about how poorly the sexual adventures were going on this work trip.
Well, one of the things you could have done is that Aspen used to be the home of the HBO Comedy Festival. It's like you could have gone there and just daydreamed about what it would be like to hook up with Gary Shandling.
It would have been much better.
Yeah.
He would have been gentle. If you've been affected by the issues on this show, if your life is a disaster movie, or if you'd like to ask us anything, get in touch with us. Our website is itsjustashow.com, and we are on Twitter at itisjustashow. We'd love to hear from you. Hey, this show is made possible by listeners just like you. For as little as $1 an episode, you can help us research and record this show, and you can listen to all our superfan bonus bits. Find out more at itsjustashow.com/Patreon or patreon.com/itsjustashow. And if you've been giving, thank you very much. And if you want to follow up on anything that was mentioned today, you'll find links in our show notes at itsjustashow.com/episode/95. I am ready to move out of the 70s. Tell me that the next thing we're going to do is not a 70s movie.
Next thing, huh? You want to move out of the 70s? Why? Don't you love Brown? Don't you love Brown?
No.
Well, that could be, a thing that you have to wrestle with psychologically, because more Browns are coming as we are looking at 1979's Parts the Clonus horror next time, which was done as part of Season 8, Episode 11 in the Sci-Fi run.
Okay. All right. More Brown. Parts of Clonus Horror. I don't think I've seen this episode, although I've always thought the title was intriguing. Is it a horror?
It's kind of more of a sci-fi, as I recall. I did see this ages ago. Not too clear memories of it because I saw it just the once when it had come out, and I had downloaded it shortly thereafter. Yeah, thanks LimeWire. So yeah, not the clearest memories of this one, other than perhaps some trivia that we'll mention next episode.
All right. Well, great. Oh, Dick Sargent's in it.
Yeah, which means Dick York might be in it as well.
I will be very excited to watch a little Dick. But until then...
It wasn't just a rock. It was a rock Hudson.
Feels like I'm watching nothing at all. Nothing at all. Nothing at all. Take it away, Theme Squad. No, it's not a corner.